Hi everyone, it's Denise from Dobby Books. How are you? So this is my second video I've made since graduation. And what have I been doing since the 17th on Saturday? Sunday, I don't even remember. I was sleeping in and I putzed around the house and I drove somewhere, I guess, to run a few errands because I could do it and I had nothing on the agenda that I needed to get done, no deadlines. Monday morning, I was up at 6 o'clock in the morning. No, I'm lying. I woke up at 4 a.m. for no particular reason and couldn't fall back to sleep. But unfortunately, I had to report for jury duty at 8 o'clock sharp. That was tough. And I was just crossing my fingers the whole time, hoping they wouldn't pick me. I served jury duty, I think it was 2 years ago. And that was a criminal trial that took 3 weeks. And I'm glad I did my jury duty because it's just that. It is a duty, right? And I'm happy to do my service. But it was so soon after graduation. I wish it were, I don't know, a couple weeks later, but that it just didn't happen. So luckily it was after graduation. I had requested an extension because, it was my last semester and they graciously allowed me to do that. And it took 2 days to pick the jury. And that was the hard part because when you're in the jury room and they call up the original 12 people and each lawyer asks some 4 zillion questions and the judge also asks his or her series of questions, and this just goes one at a time. And they send some home and they replace them with more people from the box there where the audience will sit. That's where the rest of us were sitting. And this went on for 2 days, and you can't fiddle on your phone, and you can't really be reading or doing anything. You're supposed to be paying attention and whatnot. Well, Monday, because I'd gotten up at 4 a.m., I knew it was going to come. I just knew it was going to happen. Sometime after lunch, and I ate a light lunch, purposely ate a very light lunch, and I had coffee with that. I started nodding off, and I'm talking falling asleep so fast. I was dreaming almost instantly, and I don't know if I was talking in my sleep. I hope to God I wasn't. But it was just brutal, and I think that the judge must have, caught sight of me, and he gave us all a break. And during that 15-minute break, because I can play, I can have phone calls. I have hearing aids, and my phone calls are like earbuds. So I can have a conversation through them. I can listen to music through them, listen and watch my YouTube through them. What I was doing for that 15 minutes was playing songs that would get the blood going. And the first one I played was from, I never remember the name. I remember what they changed their name to, which was Soft White Underbelly. And I know the original name, and it just drives me nuts that I can never remember it. But their song is Don't Fear the Reaper. That always does it for me. And when I was at the in the government center, so I wasn't going to crank it up too loud, not in my ears especially. But normally, let's say when I'm driving and I really need to keep myself awake, I crank that song up, and I'm awake after that. It's just the best song ever. And that I was playing, walking up and down, in the hall, just getting the blood flowing and letting the music get to me. And then right after that, what did I play after that? I played Gloria Estefan from the Miami Sound Machine. Conga, the beat, dun 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 dun, like that. That got me going too, and I just see myself dancing to that song. So now I'm starting to feel more awake. And the last song I played, because we had a few more minutes left, was something by Meghan Trainor that was upbeat and cutesy and silly and whatever, but it did the job. So when we went back to the courtroom for the rest of the day, I was able to stay awake and what have you. But oh my gosh, that was torture. And the next day was better. I got a full night's sleep. The only drawback was there was some sort of special event going on the property there, and there was no parking. We didn't have to report to the courtroom until 10 a.m. I got there at 9:33, and I did not get to the courtroom until 10:15. There was no parking. I went around and around, aisle by aisle by aisle. You get to a point where you're thinking, should I go home? I can't go home. They're waiting for me. They can't start without me. Well, what do I do? There's no place to park. You just, finally, finally, I found a parking spot. I parked and I just walked upstairs. And by that time, everyone has to wait outside the courtroom until everyone's there. And one of the jurors, prospective jurors, looked at me and she said, "Are you Denise?" I said, "Yes." And she said, "They're looking for you." Yeah, I figured that. So I had to go report to the officer, let him know I was there. And 5 minutes later, we were all able to go into the room. And about, I'd say by 3:30 that day, they had finally picked all their jurors and their two spares, and the rest of us got to go home. Yay! So I won't be in another trial. This trial was supposed to last until June 9th. I was really crossing my fingers. I did not want to go through another thing. I had too much to do. I've been making a list the whole semester. I didn't want to be doing jury duty, but I did my part. They're not going to call me again for at least another year. So now that I've rambled on and on about that, let me tell you what I've been doing. I have my little notebook here. Hold on. This is like my little bullet journal, and I've been logging in ideas and stuff that I want to do, and projects that I want to do, everything that I've just had to put on hold. And because one of the things is really huge, I'm sorry, I'm going to go over some of the things that I'm planning on doing during my time off. And it looks like the course that I want to take, the program that I want to enter, it's going to be better for me to start in the spring. So I've got a good while off. That'll be awesome. So what I'm doing is picking up where I left off with a program that was getting me through chronologically through history. Originally, I was using a couple of reading lists of the Western Canon. There was one from Thomas Aquinas College, another one I printed out from the Well-Trained Mind by Susan Wise Bauer, and there was another one that I can't remember right now. And I was sort of grabbing a book and reading and trying to become familiar with things. But I always knew that I needed something a little more structured, that would kind of help me make connections and work my way through in a systematic way. And in time, I discovered something. Yes, because I had my history with homeschooling in the 90s, I'm still kind of connected with some programs. And I wanted something that was, what's the word? You're not going to find anything neutral when you're dealing with a homeschooling classical program, because they do have that Christian foundation to them, which isn't so bad, as long as it doesn't get, you know what I mean? You know what I mean? I just wanted something that would work its way chronologically through history. And I have no problems reading, the history of the Christian church and that, because that's when it started. But I also wanted to incorporate a lot of other things as well into that. So what I've been doing during that time is I've been following the plan of this particular program. And as I've worked my way through, I've added my own books that were written, published during the same time period, whether it was in China or somewhere else in the Middle East. And I'll show you what I mean by that. So the program that I decided to use is by a company called Roman Roads Press. They are a Christian-based company that caters to homeschoolers. And I decided to start with them. They had a 4-year program directed for high school students. And I could deal with that because, again, there's flexibility. I could give or take, whatever. And I liked their basic format. So it's a 4-year program. And the first year, they have the Greeks. And you read some of the epics like the Iliad and the Odyssey. You also have drama and lyrics. So you're reading things like Sappho's poems. What's the other one? Eumenides, Works and Days, The Fall of Troy, things like that. The histories, obviously you're reading Herodotus and Thucydides, Xenophon, you're reading that. and then the philosophers. So you're dealing with a lot of Plato. And then the next unit after that is year 2. So that would be the Romans. And in that, you're covering, obviously, the Aeneid. Who doesn't cover that? Among other things. And under the historians, you're reading Livy, Sallust, the Gallic Wars, Tacitus, Suetonius, Quintilian. Under these are 4 units within each one of those years. The next one deals with the ancient church, early Christianity. So you're reading things like the Didache, the letters of Ignatius, Justin Martyr, Irenaeus, Clement of Alexandria, well-known figures like that. Then you hit into the Nicene period, and you read Athanasius, John Chrysostom. I never get this last name's a little twitchy for me. Gregory Nazianzen. I'm familiar with that name, but I worry about that last name pronunciation. Boethius, I love Boethius. And obviously, St. Augustine. Now, I'm in year 3. So, year 3 deals with the early medieval period, and it works its way through until, I would say, the very beginning of the Reformation, if not sometime shortly thereafter. So what I'm going to show you now is my bookshelf and what it has accumulated over this time that I've been studying, and then some. So at the top, that's the Greeks. And below that is the Romans. And below that is the section that I'm going to be starting now. And that extends because there's more preserved works. Obviously, there's going to be more sources to read. So there's this bookshelf here, but it's also, if I could lower this a little bit more, there's this bookshelf here, and it goes all the way around here. Stops right where the little red lamp is, because then this moves into late Renaissance. But I don't think I'm going to cover everything here. But as you can see, and I'll go back up to the first one here, this bookshelf here. Let me move this over. This is what I'll be starting with. So I'll be reading Eusebius's Ecclesiastical History. And sometimes I can't find individual books for the section or the unit that I'm studying for the particular year. And that was the case with Nicene Christianity. So Roman Roads Press does provide a reader that you can use for that, which just puts it all in one place. As I find the ones that are missing, of course, I'll be adding them here. And my goal is to eventually get rid of this so I can have the original works. And this is an extra book I had, but these are the two of the 4 sections that I'll be covering. So Nicene Christianity, which I've touched on, and then early Christianity, which I've just started. And then we're moving way forward. These are extra. Some of these are just extra books I've gotten. This is Dr. Susan Wise Bowers, The History of the Medieval World. I won't be reading that during this time, but this is a reference I like to have. I like how she covers history as well. She's much more, what's the word? Neutral? I don't know, inclusive? I'm trying to think of the right word. But here you see the Confessions of St. Augustine and the City of God, the Rule of St. Benedict. But I've added the Quran, and then a brief history of Islam, and 1001 Nights, the Tibetan Book of the Dead, the Tale of Genji. These are things that were written around the same time. And I love to do this because my eyes can see, oh, wow, this happened during this time. And that's how I make my connections, and that's how I enjoy that. What do I have up here? The Fairy Queen, Book 1. St. John of Damascus, I found that one too. Another book by Dr. Susan Wise Bowers, and this is one that covers the Renaissance world. But I have over here is the shorter Summa of Thomas Aquinas. I've been to Thomas Aquinas College, and the volumes of Thomas Aquinas' writings are these big, humongo, blue hardback books. They sell them for a very affordable price, but there's quite a few of them. So I just chose to get a synopsis there, a little summary, and then selected writings of Thomas Aquinas. I added the travels of Marco Polo. I won't be reading all of these this year, and they're not included in the book list for the Roman Roads Press. These are just my editions. And then we have this shelf here. I hope you can see this. Let me make it closer, I guess. I have Dante's Inferno. Well, this is the whole thing, all the volumes in there. So it's not just the Inferno. I have the Canterbury Tales, and I have 2 editions of them. The one by Peter Ackroyd is written in prose, whereas the original one is written in verse. I have Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, and I have 2 different translations of that. The Morte d'Arthur, I have, this is something I added in. It was just a logbook of Christopher Columbus. I thought that would be cool. I have Thomas More's Utopia, Darmon McCullough's The Reformation, and I also have the Reformation Reader that Roman Roads Press publishes as part of year 3. Discourses on Livy. I have The Prince by Machiavelli. I have 2 different ones. I have a book about John Calvin. I'm still trying to find his writings. I haven't been able to. And this is a science dealing with this particular, the thing about science, this I know was a suggestion by Thomas Aquinas College. This was on their curriculum for this time period. Sometimes the science book that they choose is on a topic that was studied at the time. So, for example, when you have, okay, let's look at the title of this one. On the Motion of the Heart and Blood in Animals by William Harvey. This would be something known about and studied during this time, rather than going into quantum physics, you know. And I also have Michel de Montaigne, The Complete Essays. This is my personal addition to this, but I won't be reading it in the series. But this is how I have known which books to purchase and learned better which ones to add. And let me put this back up to the top. Is that too high? Okay, how's that? Okay. So what I'll be doing is my year 3 books, and I'll be continuing on. Let's see how far I get before the spring semester starts. I just know that if I get too busy with school, I can't do this. I just have to wait. Normally what would happen is that over the summer, I would study the next unit. I don't know if I'd finish it. I don't remember now because it's been a full year or so. And that's because last spring semester, I did not attend school at that time. I had to take a leave of absence. That was the semester I was supposed to graduate. But I had to take a leave of absence because my mother's health was declining and I was her caregiver. She lived here with me. And there was no way I was going to have a clear head, you know, or really the time to focus on something like this. So it's been a while. I should have already been in the fourth year studying, you know, in this whole process. So that's where I am. That's my big project that I'm going to be starting. Tomorrow I'm going to be setting everything up, putting everything in my binder, because I print out everything. Everything's on PDF. I chose the PDF over a printout, you know, book to print out. And I print them out as I go. I watch the lectures, I do the readings, and it's a lovely process I'm going through. And it was a great way for me to start, to have some sort of structure to work toward. And it was very nice. And again, it's from Roman Roads Press. If you don't mind a Christian influence in it, don't freak out too much over it, because you're just getting familiar with what was happening during that time and the influence on the culture of that time. And it's good to know, you know, and there's a whole bunch of things you can add to it. Roman Roads Press, and this is called Old Western Culture, this history series. My other projects. I'm also, because I'm looking into teaching, and the big thing has been obviously, in the news, we've been hearing a lot about the science of reading. I am curious about that. I know that when I was going to school, they were just phasing out teaching reading with phonics. There was still phonics involved, but it was just adding some of the newer research methods. So I remember some of the phonics that I learned, and I don't have a whole really good memory of a lot of stuff. When I was so young, and I was so distracted as a student. Really, I was not made for school. It was just too. I had too much energy. But I do know that once my own children started public school, I noticed that they were teaching reading very differently than how I understood it. And I didn't like it. And that's why I brought them home. Because me being the big reader, I wanted them to know their sounds and how those sounds make words and how those words make sentences and how those sentences make paragraphs, etc. So I taught my children to read, and I taught them all how to read phonetically, whether I used a manual or whether I used Hooked on Phonics, whatever it was that helped me to help them to learn to read, I used. And I did. So when they were talking about the science of reading, I'm listening to this and thinking, that sounds kind of familiar. So I said, I'm going to look into that. And I know a lot of school districts are now implementing the science of reading, which is phonics. It's phonics. For me, phonics makes sense because English is a phonetically based language. And if you know enough about English, not just its history, but about the way English is put together, you will see how they're phonetically based and how a word may look weird now, but when it was originally written, the pronunciation at that time, the English pronunciation at that time, was a little different. So they based the spelling on the pronunciation back then. They just never changed the spelling. So that's an example of that. I learned all this stuff when I took a course with a bunch of homeschoolers years ago, and they used um, the book The Writing Road to Reading, which is based on the Orton-Gillingham method. That's a method used today to help children who have dyslexia. And it is geared towards them, but the basic principles, the teaching children to read phonetically and building up from one letter to 2 letters to 3 letters, etc., working that way, all children learn from that. What Orton-Gillingham does that's a little bit different is it's multi-sensory. So you have the child looking at the letter, you have them saying the sound of that letter, not the name of the letter, but the sound of the letter. You have them touching. Maybe they have things that have, like if they have the letter, depending on that child's needs, some of those letters shapes have like a sandpaper feel to them to give them that tactile reinforcement. They also write that letter sound, and they say the sound of the letter as they're writing it. So it's that multi-sensory aspect of the Orton-Gillingham method that's very helpful for kids who have dyslexia. But they've also noticed it works fabulous for kids who are just going along, who don't have any learning challenges at all. And because I had taken that course a long time ago, using the Writing Road to Reading, I knew what this science of reading thing was all about. So I decided once the semester was over after graduation, I was going to look into taking a course from Orton-Gillingham. And there are a few. There's Orton-Gillingham Online. There's, oh gosh, if I find, if I remember to, I'll put them in the description below. But there's different ways of doing it, and some want you to do it in person, attending these seminars for a few days, which could be a lot thrown at you in a short amount of time. And if you don't have the classroom practice or mentorship, it's a little tough. I don't have a classroom setting. I'm not even helping in a classroom right now. I needed something that I could use at home at my own pace, and if I needed a real life person to talk to or to help me, that I could also have that option. So I went with the Orton-Gillingham Online Academy. And they offer an online course, and there's basic 1, basic 2, or there's an all-encompassing course. There's also a level 1, just like the regular level 1 basic 1, but this is for older students, like middle grade and high school students. So that's the one that I chose. And I'll be taking this online, and little by little I'll be printing out more and more of the student manual, as well as other resources that they're printing out for us that are learning. So this is how much I've printed out so far. And I'll be working right now I'm just doing the introduction and getting familiar with how they've set up the courses, but this is what I will be doing during my time off. And it's about, they say, I think 40 or 50 hours total, unless it's 30 or 40, but let's say 40 hours total of study time, which I can do. And you get college credits for that, and it will possibly be useful to me, should I go into teaching. So that's also what I'm doing. And the next and last other thing I'm doing is, remember I mentioned that I was learning another foreign language, and French is the one that I decided to work on. So I downloaded it was with Audible. When I was with Audible, I had downloaded the series, but I believe you can also get it at Libro FM, which is what I've switched over to. And it's the Pimsleur language series. Mine is for French. So this is Pimsleur, that's how it's spelled. And I love the way it teaches a language. And I've tried Rosetta Stone, I've tried other programs. Pimsleur really, I think, has the right idea. And they're brief, daily lessons that I listen to. I would listen to them on my way to school in the morning. I listen to them when I'm, on a drive or running errands. It's very brief. You repeat what it says. And instead of saying a whole word and expecting you to repeat that whole word, for example, they will get the one word and they'll say the last end of it a couple of times and you repeat. Then they'll go to the middle part of it. They'll repeat it a couple of times and you repeat it. And they'll do the beginning of the word, repeat that a couple of times, and then the entire word together. So your brain is kind of thrown off. It's not saying it from beginning to end, it's saying it from the end to the beginning. So you're more focused on each part of that word. And I'm going to work my way through the entire Pimsleur French series. And they have sections after like lesson 2, you start learning words for, you start learning the letters in French, and then you start learning simple words in French. So from lesson 1, this is how simple the words are. And you're learning about French pronunciation. You also have the option of skipping these reading parts of the units until the very end. And then you could go back and do that however way you want to do it. So here would be an example from a later lesson, and you see how the sentences get a little bit longer. So this is what I'll be doing as well. So it will be, the big one, the major one, is the Roman roads, Old Western Culture series. I'm on year 3. My Pimsleur French, I am still on the first part, which is lessons 1 through 5. And my Orton-Gillingham learning program, which I've just begun. So those are the 3 biggies. Those are the 3 things I want to now focus on. And that's it, everybody. Those are my projects, and I'm going to record something else about what I'm reading, and I will talk to all of you later. I love you all. Take care. Bye-bye.